Welcome back, everyone. Michael here with Offshore Citizen. UK has recently just announced that they are terminating their Tier 1 investor visa program. So I'm going to tell you quickly about what that program was all about. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what's going on, but more importantly to you, we're going to talk a little bit about what this means in terms of how you should be thinking about residency programs around the world going forward. So let's dive in. Before we do that, if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button, hit the all notification bell. Thank you for your support. If you'd like help with getting residency in other countries, getting citizenship abroad, relocating, optimizing your taxes, forming companies, doing banking, investing, etc., please reach out to me. You can book a call, calendly.com/Michael-Rosmer. There's a link in the description below, or send a message to our websites, offshorecitizen.net or offshorecapitalist.com. Okay. So what is the deal here? Well, there has been for the last, I think it was since 2008, a UK investor visa program, what they call the Tier 1 program, whereby someone could invest £2 million into British public companies and could obtain a visa in UK as a result. So they cited security concerns with this and immediately closed it down in the last week. And so obviously for people who were interested in that option, that's kind of a bummer. And one of the things that of course was unfortunate somewhat is that UK was a relatively good country, is a relatively good country to be able to go get residency, get citizenship in a reasonable time, and possibly, depending on your situation, be very tax optimized while you're doing it because of the non-dom regime. So you could have moved there, you could be there for 5 years, you can qualify for citizenship. It's pretty consistent being able to get it. For a lot of people, you know, they already speak English, so then it makes it easy from that standpoint. And so this was somewhat of a good program that is no longer available. And I guess, you know, the first thing that we can say about this is obviously if you're considering programs, this is one of the reasons why I tell people when there's a good option available, go for it, because there's no guarantee that option will be available in the future. So we saw, for example, last spring when the Hungarian unofficial program closed down, you know, not available in that regard. If we look at going back historically, some of the other programs that have been really good, Cyprus, obviously, some others that have closed down, you don't know what will be available in the future. If you got in, well, now you're in, right? You're great. It's much harder to get into Singapore now than it used to be, and so on and so forth. So definitely, if you see a program that looks compelling, I would encourage you not to wait, but to go for it, and at least get your foot in the door, at least get the process started. And if you want help with that, you can reach out to us. We're happy to help you. Now, in terms of the overall narrative going on here, I mean, citing security concerns sounds very, I mean, that's what they do all the time, right? There are concerns of safety, and we're going to do this now. Specifically, they were looking at Russians. There's been something like 12 or 14,000 Russians who have gotten residency in UK under this program since 2008, I believe, something like that. So, you know, security concerns for who? This is a good question. You know, somebody comes. Now, this being said, the program and programs like this don't make a ton of sense for countries. So what they're saying is okay, you know, you have to make sure that you're actually going to create jobs. Now, the funny thing about this, right, is if somebody comes and they create jobs in the country, how is that less of a security concern than if they just buy public shares of a company? It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, which shows me that the narrative is wrong. Really, I think what was actually going on is they're not concerned about security. That was not the reason they were shutting it down. There is a general culture within kind of Europe and a few other places that views having money and being able to use money to gain advantage as a bad thing. And so, you know, they're using this as one of the excuses to shut it down. And I suspect that you're going to see a divergence in countries over the next little while. The one is that countries that are moving in that more socially conscious type direction will tend to say, hey, we're not interested in allowing people in on this basis, right? So the criteria to get into these countries will skew. And by the way, this is a good reason, if you are interested in getting into various different countries, to be building yourself up in a variety of different regards. So This is being able to add value in terms of your education, in terms of your background, in terms of what you do, in terms of starting businesses, in terms of being able to hire people, in terms of having wealth in the bank, being able to demonstrate good source of funds, being able to demonstrate solid cash flow, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Setting yourself up so you don't have a criminal record, that would also be bad. So, all these things are good in terms of giving you optionality in the world. That's very helpful. At the same time, I do think what you're going to see is that increasingly in this diverged world, you're going to have another set of countries who understand there's a massive opportunity to be had by being able to welcome productive people who are going to add value to the country. And there's various different ways that this might happen. One is through being there locally and being a resident, maybe paying taxes, etc. Another way is simply by being a consumer. So we see this with the digital nomad visas, right? People come, they consume, they provide jobs through that, etc. So there's a lot of different benefits of being able to bring in the right types of people. And I think you're going to see a move in that direction. UAE is probably one of the pioneers in thinking really well about this, because they first brought a lot of people in, and now they're working hard on getting those people to stay. And they're seeing that over time, you don't just want transient people. You don't just want churn in the population. You want people who are going to come and settle and contribute and build things in that local economy. And there will undoubtedly be some other countries who will follow that lead. Obviously, right now we're seeing it in the Middle East, but I think over time we're going to see it in a bunch of other areas. Even if we look at what's happened with Antigua and their citizenship by investment program and their attempt to stay in touch with the people who've gotten their citizenship and involve them more in the country, it's a smart play. The reality is that the long-term value of somebody is far more than just if they come and get a passport or just come and get a residency permit. So I think you're going to find we have this divergence, and it's going to mean that in some areas things are going to open up, and in some areas things are going to close down, at least to a certain set of people. The criteria is going to shift quite a bit. As I said, it's really not that practical for a country to have a program like in UK, because what is the value to UK of having some foreigners go and buy the shares of your public companies? It drives up the stock prices. That makes them more expensive for the locals, which means the proportional yield goes down. You're not creating jobs. You're not contributing tax dollars. You're not contributing innovation. Like, what are you contributing? So it's not necessarily a dumb move. I think that the smartest immigration programs really are ones like Singapore, where they say, okay, come and create jobs and spend money in the economy and you can be here. That's the most basic way. And it's probably the template that countries should use, but we all know that this is not why countries are doing it that way. So anyway, we do see this trend towards saying, hey, let's bring in people who are more innovative. Let's bring in people under something like entrepreneur or startup visas, people who are going to do innovation. We see this in Italy. We see it in Montenegro. As they were doing the announcements here, they were mentioning it in UK, that they're going to streamline their entrepreneurial program, which has been kind of defunct. It hasn't worked especially well. It's not a super smooth process, or hasn't been over the last while. So I think we'll see more move in that direction, which might tell you that it's good to get involved in some sort of a project that's really creating innovation, adding value, building something, etc. So I hope those are interesting thoughts for you. If you like them, give it a thumbs up. Tell me what you think in the comments below, and I'm going to look forward to seeing you on the next video.